Boom. Good evening. Welcome to another Saturday night session with my name is Kat, and this is Kat's Place with Philip, and my mentor and my best friend in the whole world, and the legend, the man, Horsy. Good evening. How are you?
Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah. Last week was Friday night, wasn't it?
Yes. So tonight's topic is Horsy's topic for a change, and that is
Australia Day.
Australia Day. Let's go.
Is that Australia Day or Australia Day?
Australia.
With Y.
Australia.
Australia.
And so I was just listening to an Australian crawl record before, and it was great. We got some great bands here. We've got a great land here. But yet some people don't want to celebrate and they want to take the Australia out of Australia Day. Why is that?
As I'm not as educated on Australia Day, and I got this one to educate me, is that I think it was due to the settlers, wasn't it?
Okay, so what I've found is that Australia Day, depending on the state that you're from, has actually a different celebration. So in some states, Australia Day is actually known as Foundation Day.
That's right.
Day?
And sorry,
Anniversary Day.
That's kind of. But there's apparently every state has a different day, and that the 26th of January wasn't the original day. That actually came later due to a form of fundraising for war vets. And
well, there was such a thing as Empire Day years ago.
Oh,
yes, I remember that.
That was the
Empire
British
Day.
Empire, and I think that was in June sometime.
July 31st. You're saying today?
Yeah, so it depends what state you were from. So I do remember Empire Day actually, and that was just a celebration of being part of the Commonwealth.
And I mean, Australia Day's only really been celebrated in the 20th century, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
since
correct.
I suppose World War One, between World War One and World War Two, when it started to become popular to celebrate Australia Day. But it was the January the 26th, wasn't that the day that it was either the day that the first settlers arrived, with the first ships in 1788, or it was the day in 1770 when Captain Cook landed in Botany Bay. It was 1788, wasn't it?
Well, so we're kind of led to believe, but for what I was reading, I mean, that might have been the year. The year's probably correct. But the actual day might be a bit withered a bit because it's been moved around so many times. I mean, it wasn't until World War One that they just decided, hey, let's have one day for Australia Day instead of having 6 days in 6 different states. So,
I thought it was about World War One or about that time, but I mean, the point is, it's to celebrate. I mean, it celebrates, I suppose, the day that the first fleet landed, and state their claim on the land. And of course, they described it as a land which wasn't inhabited, even though it was, which was wrong. And there were various things that happened, and they just sort of barged in and said, this is our land and we're going to set up camp and all that sort of stuff. And there are various things that happened in the early days which weren't all that good on both sides. But recently we've got people who say we don't want to call it Australia Day, we want to call it Invasion Day. Because it was an invasion, which I guess it was. But my problem with that is that you can't actually change history anyway.
No, you can't.
And a lot of these people who are wanting to call it Invasion Day and wanting to downplay its importance in our history, those people actually benefit from the society that was created by European settlement. And if it hadn't been the Europeans, it would have been the French or the Dutch. They were also sniffing around. So if Captain Cook and his mates hadn't come and settled on Australia, then someone else would have. So the lifestyle, I've just been told it was 1935 when Australia Day celebration started, but the lifestyle that the Aborigines had on the land wouldn't have lasted because, I mean, a lot of places were being colonised in those days, in the centuries before. So that wouldn't have lasted anyway.
Kat and I were having a discussion about how the same thing was happening to the Americas, where the English were
Mm.
taking over the Americas. In fact, they have a similar story to us, where they just show up and decide to just take over.
And I was saying to Philip that I know Captain James Cook discovered Australia and New Zealand, but the names weren't called by him. From what I was told, that it was the Dutch. I think Australia and New Zealand are named after the Dutch.
Australis, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Dutch were here, I think, in the 1600s. I think they were over the other side of the continent in Western Australia somewhere, but they didn't actually settle. And I think their technology with mapping and that sort of thing wasn't very good in those days, so they didn't settle. So it could have been the Dutch.
But also, from what I was saying today today's discussion was, had it not been the Dutch, had it not been the British, imagine had it been the Americans who actually came here and colonized Australia and New Zealand, and it wouldn't have been called Australia, it would have been called America too, and or some kind of
but
different name.
The only problem with that is the fact that America didn't have its own stability. In fact, the closest thing to a stable America was in South America. And that goes back to when they had basically tribal leaders running South America. Other than that, the Americans didn't have the time to colonize other countries because they were basically at war with the British. So they didn't really have any resources or time or stability themselves. So they just couldn't do it.
So the whole reason we live in this great southern land of ours is because we have such a diverse, multicultural society from everyone from different
we do now
life, yes, and we celebrate such an important day because it's a part of our DNA, it's a part of our history, it's a part of our culture, it's a part of our education, and as much as years gone, even till now, years gone by, they, as you said, they've been trying to fight to change the day because they feel that the day is theirs and not everyone else's.
I think it's because the First Fleet landed on that day and it was seen as an invasion, so they want to change the day. I mean, that doesn't matter to me. I mean, you can't change history, but if you've ever been to a citizenship ceremony, which I have, there are lots of people who want to become Australians. Lots and lots of people. We have lots of immigrants who want to come here. And so it is a great country to live. It's always seen, on the world stage as being a fairly free place to live. There's lots of space and the weather's good. And I think those are the things we're celebrating. I mean, back in the day when I was a kid, when Australia Day was celebrated, it was always guys are wearing hats with corks on them and having barbecues and all the things that in those days we enjoyed about being Australian were going on.
And there's
nothing wrong with that.
And a VB with a sausage in your hand.
You know what?
It's a great diet.
Like TV, now I don't. I just can't.
I don't eat sausages at barbecues. In fact, I'm not, unless I cook it at home. I'm not a great fan of barbecues when I'm out.
What? Not you don't like
barbecue and that sort of thing. I don't. No. I'm sorry. Every time anybody gets together in large numbers in Australia, they think they have to have a barbecue, and they get these awful sausages. And at community events, they're often donated by a local butcher, and they're the worst of the worst. The ones you can't sell. And someone cooks them and burns the hell out of them on a barbecue, and then serves them on a bit of bread with no butter and some tomato sauce out of a bottle, and hands it to you. And we were talking last week about the hot dog, weren't we?
Yeah.
Now, if there's anything worse than the hot dog, it's the barbecue sausage at the Australia Day event or anywhere else. I'm sorry. I will have, if there's any salad there, I'll eat the salad, and that's it. I don't. That doesn't.
See, I don't
agree with me.
I don't mind the lamb chop. I'm happy to
Mm.
have the lamb chops during Australia Day. I think that's kind of part of a basic Australian culture to have lamb chops. That's how I was brought up, and that's probably what I'm going to do. But I'm happy with the sausage sizzle, as much as it's disliked by some.
Look,
Well, Australia was,
let
you
me
know,
tell you
what
something.
it is.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me tell you something. I'm very proud to be from New Zealand. I am a New Zealand citizen, but when we came here in 97, we became Aussie citizens in 2002, my whole family. And it just makes me feel so lucky and privileged and honored and blessed to be part of such a beautiful country. The diversity, the culture, you know, just the way people celebrate life. And Australia Day is all about being together. It's a togetherness.
Well, it should be. It should be. I'm not sure in recent years that it has been as good as it was some years ago. Like I'm talking 20, 30 years ago. I think a little bit of that has been lost. I don't know whether it's because Australia has become so multicultural and there are so many different nationalities here and they have their own traditions. Which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's fine. I mean, I've always liked Chinese food and I like, I like Turkish coffee. And so there's, don't get me wrong, but I think that some of that sense of togetherness has been lost in recent years. In some places. But I mean, you're talking about lamb chops, Phil, and Australia was said to be riding on sheep's back for many years. Because we had actually New Zealand's got more sheep than people still, I think. I don't know about Australia. It has.
I shouldn't have opened this door. I should have kept my mouth shut.
And New Zealand's a great place. I love New Zealand. If only the weather would improve. The weather's terrible.
Well, I don't know.
It rains all the time.
Yeah, it's cloudy, it's rainy, but there are moments where it's absolutely glorious on a hot summer day. But like here we have Australia Day that's based on everyone's having a sausage sizzle or barbecue, or even playing cricket on a hot day, playing cricket or beach or swimming.
Yeah, whilst we basically scorch ourselves in the sun. Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned cricket, Kat, because actually Cricket Australia have said that they're not going to refer to the day. I think there's a cricket game on Tuesday. They're not going to refer to it as Australia Day. They're going to refer to it just as January the 26th, which is interesting coming from an organisation that wants to take the Australia out of Australia Day, but they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Australia Day and Captain Cook's settlement, because cricket was brought to this land by the English. And so if cricket hadn't been brought to this land, they wouldn't exist, or they'd be calling themselves Boomerang Australia. So I find it funny. That they're coming out and saying that. And I think it's just a bit of political correctness that they're going on with for the sake of it. And I think because they think they'll please some people by doing it. But yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned cricket there.
I wouldn't have a problem with having a Boomerang sports day. In fact, I remember that when I was in school, that I went to Holy Cross, and part of the curriculum was literally learning about the cricket and how important the cricket was to modern history. And one of the things that they actually did teach us is that sometimes when they had Aboriginal players, or even they wanted to show some sort of culture from Australia, they would get a bunch of Aboriginals and Aborigines is racist, but Aborigines, and basically show their boomerang skills on the field.
Do we have a question? I'm not educated, so I'm open to understanding and educating myself. But why do we have a boomerang?
Well, it's a weapon of the Aborigines. It was basically used to hunt things.
Oh.
And it comes back, unlike a spear, which is you throw it and you lose it for life, basically.
Okay, since we're on the topic of Australia Day, let's make this debate a healthy one. The Pal and the Lamington are both Kiwi.
Well, that's even debatable.
Are they? I was going to mention pavlova earlier as being an Australian delicacy, but is it Kiwi? Is it? Could be.
It's actually named after I think a Russian Anna Pavlova. The Germans said they have a hand in it, but
Yeah.
Kiwi states there's.
Okay, so
I don't know.
So the New Zealanders and the Australians continue to argue that they created the pavlova first, but the truth is it's probably Russian first. We've stolen it from a country and called it our own.
Well, I think that I mean, New Zealand's part of Australia anyway. Really, it should be. It
It
was
should be.
Right,
just like Tasmania was part of Australia.
it
But
still
it
is.
still is, of course.
It still is. I have half my family is actually made up of Tasmanian relatives, and all of them literally say they want Tasmania to be a country. And I continue to say you can dream that, but let's be honest, you'd never be able to survive without the rest of Australia. So stop your whinging. So-
Okay, and
I remember visiting Tassie with my daughter about 10 years ago. She was quite young, and we got to Devonport and we had dinner that night and went to the motel, and the next morning we were walking down the main street in Devonport, and she says in a very loud voice, "Daddy, is Tasmania part of Australia?" Because we've been talking about this on the boat about the fact that it is, but it's separate. And so, but yeah, Lamingtons, I don't like them either. Sorry. I just don't. I hate them. I hate them. They make me sick. They make me sick. I don't know why. I just don't like them. I just never like Lamingtons. I can eat a little bit. I can eat a tiny bit, and that's it.
There's two forms of lamington. I like the sponge one with no cream and no jam, but the other one has cream and jam, and I'm sorry, I do not like that second version of it. Stick to the normal plain lammy for me.
I think it's the coconut that puts me off. It's got a lot of coconut in it. I don't like the coconut, but that's just me.
Now,
but what other foods do we eat? What other foods do we eat on Australia Day?
Steak,
There's
meat,
beer.
a good meat product. Chicken.
You know Milo? Have you ever tasted Milo?
Yuck. No thanks.
That's terrible, that stuff.
Yes.
But
well, if we're talking about hot chocolate,
the thing is, if
I prefer to make it in a pot with milk and cocoa and sugar. Anyway.
Yeah,
I used to work for Drug Arm Australia, and one of my roles was I used to work on the food vans for Drug Arm Australia, and they had a district in Queensland, whatever. But part of my job was to talk to a lot of people that were homeless and stuff like that, and they literally taught me how you're meant to drink Milo. And what you're meant to do is you get like a little bit of Milo that's about that big, and then you boil it with hot water, and then fill it with milk instead of drowning it with milk, for which we've been taught to do before. I mean, how we've been taught to do Milo for all of our lives is literally wrong.
Milo, I'm sorry, I don't mean to upset or offend or anyone, but whoever invented Milo,
that'd be the Nestle
really was the worst idea they ever thought of.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't actually get absorbed into cold milk properly, and you get bits floating on the top. That's the trouble. So, but as you say, if you put in hot water, but as I say, I prefer to make hot chocolate with milk in a saucepan, not in the microwave, heaven no. And then you put the chocolate in, cocoa in, and then you put the sugar in, and you mix it around with a spoon until it comes almost to the boil, and then you're just ready, and it's lovely. It's much nicer. But what about Vegemite?
Ew, no.
What about Vegemite?
I don't mind Vegemite. I will literally eat Vegemite
with a spoon.
That's how I don't mind it.
And he puts it on his toast bread like as if it was Nutella. And I'd say to him,
no.
Do not put it on like it's Nutella. You put a little bit of butter, toast your bread, put a little bit of butter, put a smidge like this much, and you paste it. You don't just paste it, you put a little bit, like a smidge of it. But no, he has to put it like it's Nutella, Horsy.
A little bit goes a long way, yeah.
Actually, I met these two American guys, and they came to Australia wanting to try everything Australian, and they wanted to try things like kangaroo and whatever. And we didn't have any kangaroo on us. So But we did have Vegemite, and I literally grabbed the Vegemite and said, "Do you have any of your sauces that go like this?" And emptied it from the bottom, and it would not budge from it wouldn't budge from the bottle itself. And they were like astonished, like, "Wow, it doesn't fall out of the bottle." And I said to them, "What do you think this tastes like?" And all of them said, "Oh yeah, it must go. It's got to taste like chocolate. There's no. Why would you have something this black or brown that wouldn't, taste like chocolate?" And I gave it to them, and they said, like, "Do you like tar for breakfast? Is this what you eat for breakfast?" Tar.
But it's got a very sharp taste.
Yeah, it's
But
very
I like
spicy.
Promite. Have you had Promite?
No, I haven't had Promite. Is
So
that
Vegemite's a yeast
Vegemite?
extract,
Yeah,
and Promite is a vegetable extract. And it's also got a sharp taste, but it's a slightly different taste. And there's also Marmite, which is a bit more bland.
no, Marmite.
They all look like Vegemite.
I've heard terrible stories about Marmite.
No.
I've
New
heard
Zealand, they
Vegemite
love Marmite.
is apparently better.
New
But
Zealand,
I
they
don't know,
love Marmites.
I haven't ventured that far to try Marmite, just for fun. We should probably do that.
Australia, they goodies. Tim Tam. Nothing says Australia like Tim Tam.
What about ice Vovos?
Oh, I haven't had one of those
What's
in a while.
that?
Yeah, that's like that biscuit thing, isn't it? That's
Again, coconut all over it with this pink sort of icing, and then sugary. It's just a plain biscuit underneath. They're very rich.
I like those things. I don't hate them.
What about the Golden Gate time?
You know what? I said to my friend, I've never had a Golden Gate time in my life, but now that I've had one, I'm going to have another.
Oh dear. Oh.
Yes, well, the word gay used to mean happy, and I was reading a novel the other day, and it was talking about being very gay, meaning it was very. I think it was a gay umbrella, and meaning it was a very colourful and very happy-looking umbrella. And so, but these days, of course, anyway, let's get off that.
I have no problems or qualms with it at all. I'm just stating to anyone watching, I have no qualms with it. I'm all about it.
Everybody, let's wrap it up on Vegemite, and everybody enjoy your Australia Day.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether we should say Happy Australia Day.
Australia.
Happy Australia Day. I'm not sure about that, but let's just say we're happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
How about that?
I'm very happy to be here.
Good night.
Good night, and we'll see you next Saturday, Friday or Saturday, I'm hoping.
Hooroo.
Bye.
Bye.